Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode of the Hog Talk Podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio Networks, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall, and we're also brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino, get on the game of blackjack, poker, or even unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today, get in on the action, use promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, the game starts here. And I know last episode we touched on Sam Pittman and his stage presence, and he was getting a lot of praise, not only from local media, but RJ Young was talking highly about him. He's starting to get Aaron Torres on his side, and it's funny that we hear this every year, but RJ Young was posing the question, is Arkansas back? And I had alluded to the fact that I loved how Pittman was owning the hot seat, wasn't trying to brush it off, but knowing what they have this year and knowing that they possibly have a more cohesive unit and a better OC, we could be looking at a different outlook this year.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to go in with optimism, especially being a coach or player. But, it's one of those things that, we get a little hype, post SEC media days. We get a little bit looking towards the better side of things, if you will. And, I know it's tough for some. It's definitely tough for me. And, I know we're at 38 days now. And, I'm ready for the season to get here. I'm ready for them to show us what we keep hearing about. Coach Pittman always has in my opinion, whether he's on the hot seat or not, he's good in front of a crowd, especially at the media days. He owned up to, the being on the hot seat. And honestly, he handled the question pretty good. He kind of joke about it. Like I think the question that was posed was kind of hinting at being on the hot seat. And Sam was like, yeah, I'm here. I've gone from being, in the finalist for coach of the year to this. But whether it's bothering him or not, he didn't show it on stage.
Yeah. And rightfully so. I mean, he knows where he's at. And I think that's, look, last year, not knowing where, not kind of you're on the fence. Now he knows, okay, this is it. You bring Bobby Petrino in, and the fact that we've said it over and over and over again about knowing your staff, and between Bobby Petrino and Travis Williams, if they, again, you're going to be lesser with Bobby Petrino because this is his first year, but you've already got a full year in with Williams, and you're bringing in guys. The depth still alarms me when it comes to down the stretch, because when you look at last year, they lost 5 games in that stretch by less than 7 points. And that's A&M, that was Alabama, LSU. When you look at that, and then you've seen, of course, down the stretch where the Auburn game, Missouri game, and then sprinkled in there with the FIU game where they blew it away, but yet they were still hanging close there. That's where the last part of the season really done them in. But when you look at this year's schedule, and I posed the question about how important you think that Oklahoma State game is, I think it's going to be very crucial for them to win that game. You're muted.
There we go again.
There we go.
Early on, having that game, the second game of the season, it can set you up in different ways for what follows.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, say if you have a win, obviously you're going to be on a high horse. If you've had a close loss, you're going to be a little bit defeated, but you're going to look at like, okay, we were in there, we had some things to work on. You see where you need to go after that. Then you have the side that we all don't want, and say it's a blowout. Then do you start losing focus? Do you have players that start having, PTSD of last season and they just don't know how to handle it, don't know how to move forward? So there's a lot riding on that game, and especially to be that early in the season, they're going to have a lot of things, if not every. I'm not going to say everything because teams don't. But that UAPB game is big to have things figured out before Oklahoma State. You can't go into Oklahoma State trying to figure things out during that game, and you have to make Oklahoma State one dimensional with their running back that they have.
I think the biggest thing, and we have this year's schedule put up, but when I'm looking at last year's, that debacle against BYU. You look at the OSU game and why it's important, but yet it's sandwiched in between UAPB and UAB. So, say things do go wrong and you lose that game by 7 to 10 points to Oklahoma State, you get to regroup the next week against UAB, fix the things that you need to work on. Last year, you didn't have that chance. You had that game against BYU, and then you had LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama back to back to back to back, and then follow that with this loss. You look at that 5-game stretch right there. You should have beat Mississippi State, but look at the battering ram that you did. So the reason why I point out that Oklahoma State game is so important because you get to see where you're at, and then you have the week after that to really focus on where you're at.
Mhm.
All right, where do we kind of need to adjust? Because you think about it, you got UAB, UAPB, UAB, and then Oklahoma State, Auburn, A&M, Tennessee, LSU, and then again end it with Mississippi State. That doesn't give you any break to focus. It doesn't give you any kind of break to really reel that in. So I really like how that game is sandwiched. Plus, you play Auburn right there. There's a lot of games on last year's schedule. Again, 5 losses by 7 or fewer points. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but you bring the video game into it and you really don't realize the talent that is on this team until you really see the names that are on the team, the roster and the offense.
Mhm.
This team with Jackson and Dominion, you have depth at running back, you have depth at wide receiver. If this team gets on a roll and wins some of these games that you look at last year, I mean, look at LSU for a fact. That was 34-31 with the Heisman winning quarterback. You got a mobile quarterback. Now this year you don't. You got a pocket passer in LSU. You could flip some of these games. Not saying it will happen, but you could possibly flip some of these games, and instead of a 4-8 season, you could look at a 6-7 win season.
Mhm. And I think looking at, the schedule, the first 5 weeks are also tough in a different way, just for the fact that you've got 5 weeks and you got 5 different venues.
Mhm.
You've got Little Rock, you got Stillwater, Fayetteville, Jordan Hare, then Jerry World for the last game there. Um, that's tough for players to like. You really can't get in a rhythm. I don't think, at least. Maybe they've got it figured out, but I think that going in 5 straight weeks, especially to open up the season, and you're playing in 5 different venues, it kind of makes it to an extent you're at a little bit of a disadvantage, in my opinion. And I say what you want about the Little Rock game. We've heard from coaches in the past that that's treated like a road game, rightfully so. I know that I'm sure that they've been talking about it, but obviously they don't want to get too far ahead. You got to focus on UAPB and then Oklahoma State after that. But looking at the entirety of the schedule, I mean, it's one of those things that it's never going to be easy in the SEC, and it's never going to be easy when you're Arkansas. But you hope that what they're going to go through in those first 5 weeks with the travel, with the different environments, that's going to help them at different points throughout the season.
Yeah, and you're looking at a couple of rebuilding teams, with A&M, Auburn still on, their rebuild phase. I think that really having that OSU game, second game of the season, it really helps you out. And also, you really have a favorable first couple of games. Now, A&M, no cupcake. I mean, again, we know how that always goes. But like you said, those first 5 games are very, very important because after that, I mean, you got Tennessee, LSU, Mississippi State, then Ole Miss, Texas. I mean, La Tech, they're no slouch. And then
Mhm.
against in that last game against Missouri, where you know how that goes. But this team, if they're as cohesive as everybody says they are, and they come rolling out and they go 3-0, and then say they come out, I'm telling you, like these, if they can get that first win in the SEC, you've seen how that happened in 21. You know, you give that team something to believe in. That could be the difference between a 4-8 or an 8-4 season. Just believing, okay, we can play with these guys. We can beat SEC teams. We have the firepower. We have a quarterback now that's more mobile, can command the offense, and especially an offense like Bobby Petrino's. So there is a lot of promise out there, and I hope it's true because look, man, I want to be coming on here in September, October, talking about this team fighting for bowl eligibility or this team's on the right track. Nobody wants to come on here week after week. We look at last season and week after week, you're talking about another loss. And I'm excited for the fans because you have the talent on both sides of the ball. It's just again what we said that the you have now your defensive coordinator's fully solidified. He's in there, he's got his feet wet, he's ready to control the defense. And then of course there's nothing left to be said about Bobby Petrino. We know he can run any kind of offense. He's done it at Louisville, Arkansas, he's done it at Missouri State and then Texas A&M. So this could be a very promising. And I'll tell you another thing, them getting ranked 14th for a team that not only have they seen it and heard things from Arkansas fans, media, but now having to go through a whole week, you get on that podium and then the end of the week, you're like, but you're still 14th. I'm telling you, that either deflates them or that puts a chip on their shoulder that they're going to have something about that. You know, they're going to have something like that. That's locker room material, bulletin board material. I would put something up right there in the locker room that shows where they want you as the SEC. And I'd also put Landon Jackson in there along with all the other SEC, all SEC people that look, this is where they think you're at.
You know, one question or one thing we were talking about last night on HQ Live with Jason Pattison of Big Trail Nation, Hogville.net. You know, he was talking about some of the we got into the conversation of camaraderie and how cohesive and tight knit this group is. Because you know, Pittman said that it's not like last year's. They're a lot closer compared to like, as previous seasons are. And one thing that he brought up was, you know, he used Landon Jackson was the kind of the example that previously, you know, Landon Jackson I think has been going up against Carmona um, day in and day out, and they're essentially working together to help one another on offensive line, defensive line, what their moves are, this, that, and the other. And you know, essentially, last year, Landon Jackson, he had no part of that, and that's not a shot at him by or
Yeah.
any of them. They just there was not that connection there. There was not that camaraderie there. There was a separation between offense and defense and position groups, and it was essentially. I'm not saying they didn't care about each other. There was just a divide that you know we're hearing is no longer there, and you hope that that's true. Like you brought up, I think one of the biggest concerns coming up is going to be the depth.
Yeah.
You know, looking at it like, you know, after you're too deep, there's a lot of positions that are just very scarce that if somebody doesn't show up or an injury, God forbid, happens, you're going to be hurting in some positions.
Yeah, and we'll end this segment on talking about that offensive side of the ball, and then after the break, we'll talk more about the defense. And but going back to the video again, I know it's crazy, but Green, and then you have Jackson, Satania, Tesla. I mean Haas. You have a potent offense, and I was talking to a friend of mine close to the team media. He was saying that Carmona is one to be looked out for. He said he's the real deal. The offensive line will produce, and he has came out and said that it's going to be a 7-8 win season, because you look at last year, what they had, what they came up short on, but now look what you have with that offensive line. And we know if Arkansas would have had an offensive line, and then on top of that, how many times did they have chances in the red zone against LSU and didn't capitalize? You're going to have a guy at OC now and a quarterback and the firepower. You're going to score, but you have to have that offensive line. And what he told me was, we shouldn't have anything to worry about with the offensive line. Now, that's yet to be seen, but it sounds very promising coming from him that there's a lot of faith in this team, and just that how they were ranked and how the rest of the SEC saw them really put a chip on their shoulder and really gave them some firepower to take back to Fayetteville and know, hey, look, coming into summer practices, fall camp, whichever one you want to call it, they know they have work to do, but I think we're going to see a different team this year.
Yeah, and looking at just some stats and everything, and you're bringing up the games that were lost by 7 or less points. I forget who posted it, and it was a week or so ago, but it was Bobby Petrino's record in games decided by 7 or less points. And I want to say it was something ridiculous, like he was 22-1 or something over his career, or at least his career over the last 20 something years. And you look at that, and now you've got somebody that is competent at OC, that is an X factor when it comes to that coaching your offense and guiding them and whatnot, play calling, etc. And mixing that with a quarterback that, as Sam Pittman put it at media days, was perfect for Petrino's offense. You're potentially looking at a deadly combination. So one thing that we've been talking about with the offensive line being a concern from based off last year. I hope that with the receivers that we have, the size that we have, that they get more looks than they got last season. We've got 6'4" and 6'7" receivers. Throw the ball up and let them go get it. Like, hey, great. The Arkansas Florida game that Broden caught the game winning touchdown. I get throwing it low where only he could get it, but how many times last season did we see a ball thrown up in the back of the end zone for him to go up and grab it? It was either way overthrown, thrown out of the back of the end zone, or just way off target. And you hope, and we've seen so far, just in Taylon Green's work, whether it's been practice or going back to his video from Boise State, we could have something here that we hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah, and look, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I mean, he can throw really well on the run, and he's got 3 inches on KJ. You think about from a quarterback aspect, that's huge. Being able to see over the line, read your defense, throwing on the run was really the challenge. And you just think of what KJ did in the pocket, and he was able to run and get it himself out of trouble. But man, just think about some of those throws that on the run, if he could have made them, he was always either throwing it over or at the feet. You got a guy like Green who can come in and throw the ball accurate on the run. In the end, this is a team, this is a coaching staff and a team that, look, what do they got to lose? Let's open this thing up. Let's give Bobby Petrino the keys. Let's open it up and really, like I said, you're ranked 14th. They got you ranked 14th in the conference. Let's shock the SEC. Let's bring this thing out in the open. And me personally, I think it'd be awesome. I'm here for it because I want to see at the end of the year there are 7-8 wins, and they're 4-5 in the conference or whatever have you. That 4 conference wins, that's something to hang your hat on when you're 4-8 last year.
Well, and something too with Taylon Green, it's one thing for him, and I think one thing for him to succeed is let him run because y'all chose for him to run. Don't let him run because the offensive line broke down and he's running for his life. So those designed quarterback runs, because watching some of those at Boise State, the kid is fast. So you have a decent offensive line that can let him get to the outside and just put the jets on, I mean, that's another weapon that we have. I know that we really wanted that in Malik Hornsby, and it didn't
Mhm.
come to fruition. But here you go. You've got a guy that's proven to do it.
Well, and again, a lot of that was maturity and just the accuracy.
Mhm.
And look, let's be honest, when you're on the one of those that are in the transfer portal, one, that shows me you got 1 foot in, 1 foot out if you're looking. But two, this is something that's been said all along too, is you're only good as your next job. So where did he go after that? And so you look at Texas State compared to where SEC. So if no other SEC people are looking at you and believing in you, or Power Five schools are looking at you, that shows you where overall they see him as a quarterback. I think this is a lot different now with Taylor Green, because look, you as well of all people know what Bobby Petrino done with Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's been
Mhm.
your guy. So if anybody can get boosted, I'm not saying he's going to be a Heisman Trophy winner, but if anybody can develop that type of quarterback, that prototype, he's in the right hands. And I mean, it was even stated that that's the reason why he
Mhm.
came here, is because he knows Bobby Petrino knows what he's doing with the mobile quarterback.
And we've touched on it before, that the separation between high school recruiting classes and transfer portal classes. You go get these guys that, yeah, you're going to have for 1 to 2 years, but then you hope that he's going. We've got KJ Jackson and Malachi Singleton sitting behind
Mhm.
Taylor Green, so you hope that while he is here, he is helping set them up and show them what's needed, and show them how things can be. Because you hope that, if you get your high school recruits to stay, that you've got a seasoned veteran quarterback, whether he's been there for 4 years or whether it came from the transfer portal. I don't think we're going to really see many more freshman quarterbacks come in this day and age and start.
No, you and they can try to. I mean, they tried to get the kid from Tennessee to get some reps, but look, it's a whole different ball game. It's so different than baseball and basketball, when the reads and really knowing how to read a elite Power Five defense. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, plus your routes and the verbiage. I mean, it takes you a long time to come in, and now there's some people who've done it. You come in, you can command an offense, but Taylor Green's only a junior, so
Hmm.
he could really build something. Come in this year, make some noise, and then build on that going into next year. So I'm just looking at all these guys that have time left. You got a lot of talent that still, you look at Taylor Green, then you look at your tight end core, look at your Satania, I mean, it's one of them things that you can really build off of. And that's the most important thing, is you're not doing this 1 year and you're losing a bunch of seniors at your skills position. They can come back and build off of this. Say you go 6, 7 wins, build off of that. And then next year you could really make some noise.
Yeah. And then, I know we'll get into the defense after the break, but the guys like Landon Jackson, that's these guys that are on their way out on the cusp of the NFL. You know, if you want to compare it to the NFL, this is your contract year. This is your year that
Mhm.
you're ready to earn your contract. So you need to, show up and show out. And I think we're going to see that from these guys that came back but are ready to go.
Yeah, and we're going to break down that after the break. We'll be right back, and we'll touch on the defense and talk some more stuff before we wrap it up. We'll catch you after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Springfield. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South First Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company.
And welcome back to the Hog Talk podcast. And moving on to the defensive side of the ball, led by Landon Jackson, lone SEC player, all SEC team, second team, I believe. But we kind of talked about this going into last season when you got some defensive ends, 6'7", 282, with in mind that he is here to up his draft stock. On the other side of the ball, there's only been one skill player drafted during Sam Pittman's time here, and that was Treylon Burks, and we seen what he did. I think now you're going to have a defensive leader because, yeah, you're kind of in a way being selfish because you know in order to get drafted, you have to have a great year and you got to perform yourself, but you're going to use that fuel to sit there and you look at Eric Gregory, Cam Ball, Hudson Clark. Be the last time we could see these guys. And I know of all people, Hudson Clark, we've seen the ups and downs of his career from a fan's point of view. If you get a defensive going where you could put him in his spot, put him in his safety position and really play his position, I think he could get back to that point. But a lot of it's going to be up here, his confidence and knowing that, he's not going to get out of position, get burnt, but if you can get some guys to rush the quarterback, they had 29 sacks last year, very underwhelming. When their school record was 42 in 2022. So we know that's got to come up. But all in all, the plus side of that, you only gave up 202 yards passing last year, which was 91 fewer than 2022, and you gave up only 357 total. I know it's moral victorious. I know it's kind of a participation trophy-like, but that's not bad for a 4-8 team.
One thing looking at Landon Jackson, I think he finished the year with 6.5 sacks or something like that. 3 of those came against Alabama. And I know that got a lot of early press, but fact remains is he was going against a freshman. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I'm not trying to knock down what he did because 3 sacks for anybody is great. In a single game. So I know there were some games last year that we didn't really hear his name called at all, kind of just faded to the background, if you will. And, with everything left, we know he's going to be drafted, but to raise his draft stock, I'm looking at it like, can you double what you did last year? Mm-hmm. Can you not, disappear? Can you make sure that we see you game in and game out? Be that vocal leader. Be, the locker room leader that we don't see. I kind of feel like after media days that's what we're going to get.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny you say that after 3 sacks, got a lot of hype. Goes back to the guy that we just talked about, Hudson Clark, 3 interceptions against Ole Miss, and you've seen all the hype. He got a scholarship for it. You know, that's where it's going to separate this team. You look at these, and it's the little things, right? You look at the 3 sacks against Alabama, they lose by 3 points, but it's that one play defined that game last year. That 3rd and long, Milrow runs and ends up scoring I don't know if he scored or he got really close to scoring. I mean, but you had a pin deep. Pivotal moment. And that is the importance of what I tell these people of one play can really change the outcome of a game. Everybody shows that clip of the Texas A&M game where he flips it and then A&M scores. Since that point, Sam Pittman's X and X against SEC opponents. That right there was a big time because, you know, you're coming off a loss, and that heartbreaking type of loss where you were in it against Alabama and then go and you lose the game against Mississippi State. What if you hold on to beat Alabama? Do you win against Mississippi State? Do you beat Auburn? Are you confident? Does that catapult you into beating Missouri? You never know what one game can do to the rest of your season. We've seen it. We've seen trends. Again, when I bring up the BYU game, you lose that game, and now you go on a 5-game, 6-game losing streak. If they win that, how does that project going into the LSU game? You just look at all these one possession losses last year, and maybe that's a lot of why we're hearing that this team's going to be different, that there's still a lot of faith in Sam Pittman because you flip half of these games around, now you're 6-6. Just half of them. You win 2 of these games, you're sitting at 6-6. And I know a lot of this sounds like, you know, we're just sunshine. Well, I personally, you've kept it, you know, even keel. I won't project what you're trying to say, but you know, you just take 2 of these games and what if game, whatever, but you're 6-6, and they were winnable games. It ain't like you're 17-point loss. You're like, man, if we would just not threw the 3 picks in this game, we could have been here. So that's where coming into this season, there's a lot of promise because you're looking at a better team for Arkansas this year on offense. And you're looking at some of these teams that are going through coaching changes. They're going through quarterback changes where you could flip a couple of those games.
You know, you bringing up last year's schedule, and you know, yeah, if we had beat Alabama, I think things would have been completely different. I look at that Mississippi State game. I think that game was 10-3 was the final. I think that was the game that you kind of saw some players give up, if you will. And I think that game after the Alabama game really set the tone for the remainder of the season. And whether it was, and it wasn't all players, and a lot of it came from the quarterback position, in my opinion. And I say that because of what we saw on the sidelines, the facial expressions, the body language. So I think that was the game that really kind of set that in motion. You just hope that, you know, I think this is true, you know, with Petrino on the offensive side, that you're not in that situation. You've got a coach that's going to make the right calls, that's going to put the players in the right positions. I look at it that these guys got to feed off each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those that you don't want the offense thinking like, okay, we've got to go bail out the defense. And then flip side, the defense is like, oh, we've got to bail out the offense. You hope for that cohesiveness between the two groups. And on defense, I mean, you know, it's one of those things we've heard from fans week in and week out, well, day in and day out, on whether it's comments, posts of their own, whatever, about the Arkansas secondary, you know, some players in particular. But, you know, go back and look at the stats. And, you know, the passing yards that's been given up, or these guys are better than I think they get a lot of credit for. Especially Hudson Clark. I know there's a lot of critics out there on him. And I just look at, you know, his what Pro Football Focus, you know, the grades that they put out for these players and whatnot. I mean, he's been one of the highest rated secondary players for the past 2 seasons. Yes, we see him look like on camera from our point of view that he might be out of position all the time. But there's a lot of those times that he's going to cover a spot that somebody else has missed an assignment on, or that somebody else got burned on, and he's trying to get to that player. So he's not as out of position as everybody seems to think. And I go back to this too. Why would a coach put a player on the field that wasn't ready or wasn't good enough, or there's somebody better on the bench? I don't fully believe in that.
Yeah, there's nobody better on the bench, and that's part of it. But two is the depth, like you said. There's nobody better on the bench. I mean, we can't say that none of it was on him, because I mean, some of it was, but I'm not saying all of it was. But going back to what we were talking about with KJ is one. I mean, he was tired of getting beat up. I mean, he's tired of just really having to run the ball and get beat up and throw. But again, a lot of that was on him too. Not, I mean, holding the ball too long, because he had the pressure of feeling like he had to do too much. But to that second part is his expressions. You're the leader of that team. And look, it's one of them things that I would much rather you say nothing on the field and we hear 80% of it happen in the locker room, opposed to we're seeing what you're doing on the field. If we're seeing on camera what you're doing on the sidelines or after a play, and you're carrying yourself like you did, that projects exactly what you said. It adds on to the fuel of, man, look, KJ's doing this. Look, he's been here this whole time. He's the leader. He's had enough. I'm going to join, follow suit. So you've got to hold yourself to that higher standard. And I know a lot of people that's hard for. They just want to take that easy way out of, I'm going to hit the transfer portal. I've got my NIL bag. I've got all this money. I've got this car now. So you look at the freshman him and look at the senior him. Freshman him played way better than senior him, and a tougher conference.
Mhm.
So you not freshman him, sophomore him, because freshman year he played one game against LSU.
One game, yeah.
But when you look at his first year starting compared to his senior year, and again, we'll see what he does in a new offense. He's getting a new chance as well. He's getting to go play for Gus. We'll see how that works out. Hey, could be well for him. Hey, that's fine. But you could see what was going on in Arkansas. And as your leader, that would be just like Landon Jackson giving up. And maybe he did. I don't know, but he come back too. So let's see how this season plays out. But you're going to have a quarterback that, one, he gets 2 years at this. So it's not going to be an all is lost. He's going to give up and kind of cash it in and head to the NFL. So he could say, look, let's learn from this. And even again, what we said with the whole, just get to 6-6 this year, get bowl eligible, build off of it. Let's get this program rolling. I would love to have a 7-8 win season. I think 7-8 wins is obtainable, but we got to see it on the field first. And that's why I put that importance of Oklahoma State game 2. That's where you're going to see where you're at on a road environment. Oklahoma State is not they're better than BYU as a non-con opponent. And you got a marquee All-American running back that you got to deal with. So that's going to be a big test in a very hostile environment, that because these two teams are so close in proximity, they don't play as often. It's going to be a very, very intimidating environment to walk into.
Yeah, and I think that Oklahoma State, I don't know if the fans look at it this way, kind of like I do, but we all know that Oklahoma State is the little brother to Oklahoma, and you hear the Arkansas fans, at least they want Arkansas versus Oklahoma. That's the game, one of the games that they want to see. It's never Arkansas and Oklahoma State. And I think that Oklahoma State, especially, hey, we're playing an SEC school. They want to shut the SEC up, and this is the way for them to do it. But going back to the comments of the vocal leaders and the locker room leaders, I have no issue seeing a quarterback or a linebacker or whoever your defensive leader is, if it's Landon Jackson, being on the sidelines and coming at one of his teammates. And when I say coming at, I mean, calling him out on the sideline. That's perfectly fine. We've seen Peyton Manning do it. We've seen Tom Brady do it. We've seen other players do it. But I'd rather see that than just slumped over, sitting off by yourself, eating Skittles or whatever you do, pouting essentially.
Exactly.
Like, you know, call out those players. It doesn't have to stay for the locker room. Get them ready, get something fixed before y'all go back out on the field. But don't just go sit off on the side by yourself and, you know, poor pitiful me down there on your own. So it's a matter of who you hope it's obviously Taylor Green, and you hope that it's Landon Jackson that are going to be those that have these guys reeled in when they're not on the field, or if
Yeah.
you have to get their attention in a huddle or whatever the case may be.
You look at the Oklahoma State game, and it's funny you're talking about the little brother to OU. I mean, Arkansas and Oklahoma are like the same team. You know, they're the little brother to somebody, and they think that, you know, they got something to prove. Arkansas has something to prove because of their showing the last couple of years, and then you got OSU, who's lost their rival to the SEC, and of course Gundy. You know, they're going to come in like, we're going to show them why we should have went to the SEC as well. You know, there's that chip on their shoulder, and to really prove to their conference, because we see where their conference is going. You could possibly have 2 more members of that conference being added. So we want to show our dominance, say, look, we're the new king of the Big 12. We're going to whoop up on Arkansas SEC team and send a notice to Clemson and Florida State like, hey, this is what you got to look forward to. I mean, it's just that ego thing. And that's the way I see it. It adds more fuel to that fire. This is going to be a very competitive game. I think both teams coming into this have something to prove. And again, they want to beat each other just as much as the other team does. And there's a lot of OSU fans around here that are going to come out of the closet because, one, they've never played each other. You know, you always have that when people don't play each other. Now you're going to see a lot more. You're going to notice there's a lot more OSU fans around here because they're playing this year.
They're definitely one of those teams that, you know, it's one of those, if you have to pay attention to Oklahoma schools, which we have to in this area, because they're, you know, if you had to pick Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, you know, it's like I'd roll with Oklahoma State just because they're not OU. But you know, especially in Fort Smith, there are a lot of fans that they're Oklahoma State fans because they don't want to like OU. They feel like they're forced to like OU. And so we're going to see leading up to that game, you know, there's going to be a lot of folks that are, like you said, coming out of the woodworks, Oklahoma State fans. Will you see, here's a good question, is will you see Oklahoma fans rooting for Oklahoma State to beat the SEC opponent?
Yeah.
Or will you look at Oklahoma fans saying, hey, go beat down our little brother?
Yeah. It's going to be, look, Oklahoma State, but that would be like me saying, hey, Clemson, I want you to take care of Arkansas. Hell no. No. We're fortunate where we live in the River Valley. We, you know, you go an hour west, you're right in the heart of that bedlam where, like my cousin, she's an OSU fan, her husband's an OU fan. I mean, we're right there in between the two fan bases where, yes, there's a lot of OU fans, but where I went to school, Connor State, was a Oklahoma State junior college, you know, per se. So there's a lot of mix, but if there is any OU fans that are willing to root for Oklahoma State in the same sport to beat an SEC school, that's a level of petty that I can't even get to. I mean, you know, if you're willing to sit there and say, all right, we're going to join forces this week with little brother, and that's just unacceptable. And by book of fandom, it's unacceptable.
I know it's the tiny screen of Winsipedia here, but I was curious while we were talking about that. So it's been since 1980 since these two teams have played.
That's crazy.
Arkansas won 33-20 in Little Rock. They won the previous 5 games. Overall, Arkansas's, 30-15. But yeah, they have not played since 1980.
So listen, we can honestly say, facts speaking, Oklahoma State has not beaten Arkansas since 1975. That's something to go into the game. You look at 1975 is the last time Oklahoma State's So if you want to put a spin on it, you want to put some cherry on it. Hey, you've got a 5-game win streak against Oklahoma State, and they have not beat you since 75. So there you go.
I mean, why not? I
It's
mean,
not
since
mine.
the media and everybody likes to throw up the random stats, there's your random stat that I'm sure somebody will bring up during the broadcast.
Yeah. So, but I mean, anything, but look where we're at. No, all jokes aside, use that. This is, I've said it. I said it last year. I'm going to say it all the way through until it gets old. This is the year of redemption. So let's redeem ourselves. Let's get the fans back on your side. Let's get the fans that are on the edge to start believing again. You know you're going to have your hardcore fans. Hey, awesome. The ones that have stayed true through and through, thick and thin, the loyal Royal Army of Arkansas Razorback fans. But now it's time to get the rest of the fans back on your side. Let's get the belief back. Roll it into basketball season, then roll it into baseball season, because this could be a very special year for the big three all around. Like I said last week, football's on the clock.
Mhm.
Let's see what they can do. And it's crazy that you see the 4-8 year. You're just going into this year off of that, seeing their play down the stretch. Like I said, when you talk to people who are around the team, they cover the team on a daily basis, and they really kind of make you take a step back and like, okay, look at the numbers, look at the teams that they were within one score of. You know, it wasn't Liberties, it wasn't BYU's, it was A&M, it was LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Mississippi State, not A&M. That was a 14-point game. And then, of course, the most confusing part of last year was you beat Florida. You're like, all right, we're going to finish this strong. Then Auburn happened. And I think that's what took the rest of the wind out of the sails for the team, because, again, you win those 2 games against Auburn and Missouri. You're looking at 6-6. So that debacle of how you lost against Auburn and how you lost against Missouri, those 5 losses by 7 or fewer points, it doesn't mean as much as those 2 losses at the end of the season by 38 points, 34 points.
And we always, previous sports seasons, we get to a point where it's and fans are this way. We've been this way, that you're just kind of like, when's baseball season, when's basketball season, when's whatever. I don't want to get like that this season.
Yeah.
Like, as hyped as I am about the upcoming basketball season, Coach Calipari, I'm ready for this to happen. I don't want to take anything away from the football team. I want them to have their entirety of their season, that we're focused as fans on them, and that we're not just looking ahead to get it out of the way. So, whether it's a 6-6 or a 7-5 or whatever, you hope you have those games that just keep us focused on them, and not just when's the next sport coming up. Because for an entire year, we've always been looking ahead at what's the next sport coming up.
And that, yeah, excellent point, because Adam, you said it perfectly. That plays into what we're talking about with this Oklahoma State game. You lose that Oklahoma State game, and then say Auburn doesn't go as well, and you're 2-2, but you lose OSU game by 10, and then Auburn just comes and kicks your tail. Everybody's just going to automatically shift at that point. For the most part, those ones that are on the fence, well, Cal's going to save us. So it is a very important year to start the season strong. I mean, just imagine what you would be like if you're 4-0 heading to the Texas A&M game. Last game in Jerry World, you win it. So it's funny, like, no matter what happens, you win that game. You can win 10 in a row. Well, we beat you that last one in Jerry World. I remember when I was at Connor State, we played Bacone. Bacone was our rival other than UFAS. It was West Ark back then. Used to play the games in the Muskogee Civic Center. I mean, that's just how big the game was. And we played them one last time before and look, I'm aging myself because I'm saying West Ark, and I'm saying when Bacone was JUCO. This is 2000, 2001. Bacone, we owned them for the last 3 years, and they beat us that last time in Muskogee Civic Center, and it was like, you don't get to play them anymore, and you can't avenge that loss because that's the last time. I know it's different in A&M because it's home and home, but it's the last time you'll play them in Jerry World, and to get that win again, look, I'm going to get slaughtered for it, but it's like you're sitting 5-0 with Tennessee on the dock. You don't ever know what's going to happen, and I think there's a lot of promise with this year. I've said it a couple times this show, but you get that belief, you get things rolling, you get the fans behind you, you have that Tennessee game at home. Anything can happen.
Well, and going into, as we're wrapping up here, we all remember what it was like in Fayetteville 2021 and the atmosphere and whatnot. So have a turnaround season, get to a bowl game, win that bowl game, head into basketball season, which will already be started, but head into that on a high horse, on a high note, just to carry over. Because we remember going into the basketball season, how hyped we all were, how hyped the team was. Take all of that, start here, start in August, start during football season, and carry it into basketball season, and then carry that into baseball season. Whether these guys are different sports or not, they feed off each other's success. They feed off the fans, and whether we're up high or down low. So it's one of those things that we want this to happen so that we can go into the coming seasons ready to go.
Yeah, and how cool was it be for the basketball side of it? You've got a fan base ripping and roaring off a successful football team ready to come to your first game. It's already going to be a sellout, but it's going to be a different kind of atmosphere. You're going to have those Tuesday night games, Wednesday night games where in the past you're lucky to get 10, 11,000 in the arena. Now you could probably sell out every single game and have seats filled. Sell out and actual filled seats is a different story. They didn't sell out every game last year, but they have the potential to do that. And, the question I want to pose before we end, and I'll make it our Hillbilly Realty question of the day tomorrow, is it's not, will you be satisfied if Arkansas gets to 6 wins and becomes bowl eligible? But how satisfied would you be? 10, 20, 40, 50, let's go 10 to 40, 40 to 70, 70 to 100% or whatever. We could put those out there, but how satisfied would you be for this team to turn around and get bowl eligible coming into next season?
I honestly don't know, because I've been I'm not going to say Debbie Downer on everything, but just a little bit pessimistic on a lot of it.
Yeah.
Pessimistic or realistic or whoever. I'm not at the optimistic point yet. I'm saying I won't get there, but it's just hard to right now. But I don't want that to, my point of view, to take away from any of the fans' point of view, by all means.
Yeah.
If you want to have these debates and conversations, I'm all for it. Let's talk about it. But, we'll see how it goes.
Just knowing the state of the program, knowing how much faith we're putting in Bobby Petrino, we're putting in Sam Pittman, we're putting in this new offense, returning defense. You got 5 and 6 returning, coming back. If they turn this thing around and got to 6 wins and got bowl eligible, you can't be nothing. I mean, again, there's going to be those ones. Well, we won 6, we could have won 8. I mean, you're going to have that. So, I mean, I would be satisfied. I wouldn't be like 100% satisfied, but I'd be satisfied enough to know, okay, let's see if we can build off something. This year is kind of a wash. I think you're at that same point. I'd be satisfied, but I think this year's a wash because we've seen too many times they have a good year. Now let's follow it up again. Let's see what you can. And I know and we're going to hear that for the ones that say they do win 8 games. well, let's see it again happen. And they're like, well, that's just not enough. You wanted a winning season. They give it to you. And that's not, no, because we want to see consistency, because this is where this program should be consistently. 6 games should be on the low end of where this program should be. 8 games, 7, 8 should be with a bowl win. 7, 8 should be the goal every year. And if you win more, you have a lucky year where you win a 9-10 season. That's awesome. But I think the goal, 7 to 8, low 6, but we've seen, again, what you should be bowl eligible every single year. It's that buffer below and the buffer above where it's a bonus.
Yeah. And it's, if you have an issue with going 6-6 after going 4-8, then I think you have too high of expectations.
Mhm.
You just improve on where you finished last year, record wise. I mean, all across the board. But so if you went 4-8 and you're disappointed that they went 6-6, 7-5 after the debacle that we saw last season, then I think you got some lofty expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can have those expectations, but if you live on it again and they don't live up to those expectations, that's on you, because those are the expectations you set. And it's funny that like exactly what you said, if you're expecting a 4-8 team that you still have questions on when it comes to the offensive line, defensive depth, team depth as a whole, if they don't get to that 8-win season, you consider it a failure. I mean, that's on the fans aspect who thought that. Now, if you go 4 wins again, you go 5 wins again, I'd say 4, 5, it's still 1 game improvement. I mean, it is what it is on that part of it. But if you go 4-8 again with the talent, with what you have and how much hope you have into this team and this program and what's been said about the promise of what this team could be, yeah, I would consider another 4-8 year a failure.
And let's look at it too. I mean, there's none of these 2025 players, that have signed on the dotted line yet. So you've still got a lot of time between now and December to potentially flip some of these in-state guys that you've lost, or even players that aren't in-state, from Oklahoma, Texas, wherever your pipeline or where you're looking at is. You've got about 4 months to prove why they should come here. So it's not all just, the end of the season record. It's you're setting up for the future class too.
Perfectly said. Because in the state of Arkansas, like we discussed before, the pressure of these in-state kids to automatically just come to Arkansas when the situation that you're seeing, it's going to be, get your fans, get your people around you that talk to you every day, get your coaches, get your friends to believe in this program, because they're going to be the ones that really sway you. Yes, you have the fan base, the social media, and the coaches. They can talk to you, but you got to give them something to believe in, instead of, why are you going to Arkansas? Let's bring it back to, man, you get to go to Arkansas. You're going to Arkansas. Let's get it back to that, because then you're going to get more of your in-state kids. You're going to get those top prospects that you've been losing year after year. You're going to be able to get the NIL bag, because look what NIL did for Cal coming in. Look what he was given to work with. You give Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino a 7-8 win season, and dude, the Edge is going to be sold out. They're going to break the internet of people wanting to donate, because what we talked about, what is in it for the fans, common fan, to giving $50 for a 4-8 team? You give them 8-4. Now you flip the script. You've given them something to want to give to. You've given that in-state kid who just thought about not even coming to Arkansas too. He might not still come, but you've got him to believe that he could still come there and make a difference. That's why this year is so important.
It definitely is. All the fans that talk about NIL and donating and this and that. It's hey, if the football team does do its part and turn things around, then as fans that complain about NIL or donations or this or that, it's like, hey, the football team's doing their part, the coach is doing their part, so now it's time for us to do our part.
Exactly.
So
And that's warranted. That's cool. I'm okay with that. It was just that flip side of you make this big push when where's the foundation at? And that's again why I say this is the year of redemption. Let's get the fans back because you're wanting in a day and age where NIL is important. You're not going to get all these big time $1 million boosters to give every year. You're needing help from the regular fans, the regular people. Boost that to where now you can get all the NIL money that you need to build that successful program. Get these kids that are here this year to stay next year, along with those kids that you're trying to flip. There's been a lot of talk. Like my friend said, there's a lot of talk about this year's team and what he's seen with this team. And can they win 8 games? Can they win 7 games? And it's time to really show us because I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be shocked from what I'm hearing. So now let's do it.
38 days, folks.
Yep.
Coming quick.
It's going to get here before you know it. I mean, again, Hootens is out. We're going to have Thomas Thrash on Thursday at 7 to talk about the Hootens football magazine, what went into it, high school teams to look out for, and even his thoughts on the Arkansas Razorbacks this year with Bobby Petrino coming back. Really excited to have him on Thursday. Be looking forward to that. We'll be live 6:30. Have him on at 7. Adam, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, 38 days away. We're almost there, people. We're getting to the point to where, Sam Pittman did his job. He started the match. He lit the fire. He's got people drinking the Kool-Aid. Let's see if it stays good Kool-Aid or let's see how this season goes. But I'm hearing there's a lot of promise in this team this year, and I trust the person that has said this to me. So let's look and see what they do come fall camp.
Let's go for it.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode. Hog Talk Podcast presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company, Believe Network, Buzz Radio Network, Sterling Soap, and Vision Exteriors. We'll talk to you on Thursday.